So as the YouTube algorithm begins to push out more and more of my content, understandably, a lot of you gentlemen are zoning in on the semen retention side of things. And what a curious phrase that is. It's even more curious to see people's reactions when I discuss a little bit about what I do in person. That's an interesting conversation to have. But of course that you men will go along and do your own research and go down this rabbit hole, as I did when I wanted to learn a little bit more about mastery and self-control. Some of the book recommendations that you gentlemen have been asking me for and hounding me for are as follows. So of course, The Coiled Serpent is going to be top of my list. Bliss of the Celibate by Julian Lee, I believe, or it might be Blake. I believe it's Lee, Julian Lee. Autobiography of the Yogi, Autobiography of the Yogi. And of course, any of the Vedic text. I think the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or Patanjali, whatever, however you say it, is also a very, very resourceful text on this journey of self-mastery, developing your spiritual organs, allowing yourself to have a better connection with God, the universe, and of course yourself. What's wonderful about this journey is that many of you are beginning to share your anecdotal experience with 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of semen retention, which is so encouraging to the rest of our community as well. Of course, I will do my part where I can to share more objective-based and factual-based evidence to encourage the skeptics among you. But I think there is something to be said about the reality that you live is dependent on the rules and the beliefs that you give it, which is a brilliant segue into the topic of today's video, which is this all fake? Is it all a placebo? Is it not real? What is the answer? So the word placebo does get thrown around more often than not, especially in relation to, let's say, benefits that seem otherworldly or unbelievable, which again I empathize with. But the first and most important understanding that you have to come to as a man is that the placebo effect is a real phenomenon. This is something that actually has an influence on reality. It is a real testament to the powers of perception and belief, whereby the very perception, the very rule book the individual gives themselves will actually have an impact and an influence on their reality, be it psychologically, even physiologically and biologically. There is the classic example of using a sugar pill under the guise or the perception of the individual that it's actually for medicinal purposes. And the very perception that this is medicinal and will bring a benefit or an alleviation to the disease or symptoms that the individual is experiencing at that time will have an impact, and it does have a significant impact. Needless to say, the benefits come as a consequence of the individual's own beliefs of their outcomes and not consequently of the sugar. The same concept has therefore been applied to the theory of SR, that it is only one's perception that brings about these benefits into one's life, which is the catalyst for these positive changes. But here's the thing I've always said, and I will always continue to say, is if you're getting the goal that you want, do not change the system. The placebo effect is real. It is not my opinion. It is something that you can observe in the evidence of physical reality. Perception does influence reality. Your beliefs do influence reality. And I know I'm becoming very, very close to that trite and cliche saying that you're just not believing enough, or believe in yourself and you will make it happen. But there is a harsh shade of truth to that. There's a real truth to it. So going back to my premise about don't change the system if you're getting the goal. The system is rarely important if you're getting the results that you want. SR mitigates the feeling of shame and lower quality emotions for me. It gives me more self-respect, more love. It is not such a stretch to say that if an individual is carrying himself with more love, more self-respect, more self-restraint, then he will subsequently see an effect in all facets of his reality. People unknowingly write the own rules to their life predicated on what's going on up here. They unwillingly make their lives more difficult or easier depending on how they think their life is going to unravel, which is typically at the source of the emotions that you hold in relation to yourself, others, and the world. So let me give you a real-time example. I remember the first time I heard about this concept of semen retention, SR, abstinence, celibacy, and I laughed myself into a stupor. Maybe you did the same. Maybe you're still laughing at this very video. But the reason I dismissed it at that stage in my life is because I couldn't believe a scenario where I would be free of the clutches of some of the illicit material that you can now view online. I had so much shame, so much guilt, so pervasive in my inner system related to how I conduct myself sexually that I didn't even want to consider it. I thought I was doomed to live a life, a slave to the animalistic nature of my lower self. But as soon as I exposed myself to some of the reading material that I prefaced in this video and some of the information that I give freely here on this channel, my belief system started to change. There was evidence of people successfully practicing this, which gave me hope. There was evidence of this being practiced successfully for many, many years in some of the oldest religions here on earth, namely some of the Hindu and Vedic texts. There is even contemporary evidence, and you can go onto subreddits where semen retention is practiced by men all over the world who are experiencing real time, real life success, real life benefits, extraordinary changes in their lives. So I started to move from this very nihilistic way of carrying myself to an opinion and a belief system of more optimism. So I conducted my first 30 days. I journaled every single day. I meditated every single day to keep me in that stage of complete and utter self-reflection and control, which allowed me to have success in this journey. And I got what I was looking for. I found what I was looking for. So regardless of whether or not it was a consequence of the physical or neurochemical or biological benefits of not wasting my sexual essence, or whether or not it was a consequence of the psychological change, I still got what I wanted. So to the naysayers, and now speak to you directly, continue living your life by the rules that you give yourself, by the very constraining rules in which you live your particular life. If you enjoy it, fine. I've often found it too binding to my creative powers. So I chose to write a different one. I chose to write a story that was more conducive to a life where I could be a conscious creator. If you keep living your life by the constraints of your narrow thoughts, you'll only get constrained and narrow outcomes. This is where the principle of faith is so paramount to your success, not only in this exercise that I'm sharing with you today, but in all facets of life. And this is biblical teachings that I'm trying to convey to you in regards to the powers of perception and belief, faith. I can cite Matthew 17 here. So truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say this to the mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Life organizes itself around what is going on up here. You never see things how they are around you. You see things how you are inside. This is the rule of the quantum. Exercise your faith. But like I always say, gentlemen, these are just theories. Take what is valuable to this point in your particular path. Discard which is not. Or maybe you need to come back to a later time, and I'll bring you something else very, very soon. Take care.